Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to episode 57 of the Prosperous Yogini podcast. And today's podcast is actually inspired by a conversation that I just had with someone on a one-to-one mentoring call. And it went along the lines of she's relatively newly qualified teacher. She's qualified foundation 200-hour teacher training and done her pre and postnatal teacher training. And she also has a 3-year-old and has been moving house and working part-time. So life has been busy for her. And she's just getting back into teaching. And quite naturally, she's been picking up some cover, which is always a great thing to do when you're either a newly qualified teacher or getting back into teaching after a break and you're feeling a little bit anxious about teaching again, or you're feeling anxious about getting started to teach, or you want to just go out and teach and you don't want the hassle of, oh, I need social media, a booking system, a website, people need to find me on Google, I better create a flyer and let people know about these classes, like all of that stuff and more that comes along with you setting yourself up independently to run a yoga class. And the conversation went along the lines of, like, I've been teaching, covering some yoga classes in the gym, been really enjoying it. It seems to be in my local area. This is how people do yoga. The gym classes are really popular. There's 20 plus in them. There's lots of like classes happening in the gym. I was speaking to another yoga teacher who had tried to set up some independent classes outside of the gym environment and it didn't work for her. So I just don't think people want to come to yoga classes in my area that aren't in this gym environment. So that was the assumption. That was the belief. And remember, our thoughts become things, our belief drive our actions or inactions. So if we step back and think about that belief that that teacher had, because she believed that people did not want yoga other than in a gym environment, and that she had evidence of this because another teacher told her. She hadn't gone out and collected this evidence herself. She hadn't gone out and tested it herself. Then at the point of the start of our conversation, she was very much like, well, I just don't think it's going to work if I set up my own independent classes, and maybe I should just stick covering at the gym. The other thing I thought this topic would lend itself to is let's just confront the topic of yoga in gyms, because if I was to go onto a Facebook group now and post something about like, do you think yoga should be taught in a gym environment, there would be a whole host of opinions, and there would be quite a few that would be like, no, yoga does not belong in the gym, and the type of yoga that you get in the gym isn't real yoga, isn't honoring the traditions, isn't honoring the lineage. I just, if you are one of those teachers, I'm not saying you're wrong. Look, we're all entitled to our opinions, our beliefs. I'm really happy for you to disagree with me. But I want you to know that I did start going to yoga for a gym. In fact, I met one of my first teachers that I can really remember, beautiful, lovely teacher, was through gym. And I had a gym membership at the time, Newquay, Waterworld gym membership. And I went to yoga 2 or 3 times a week to Waterworld, Newquay, in their studio that also was a bit smelly because people did Zumba and weights in it. And it was a brilliant class and a brilliant teacher, and still inspires me and has contributed to where I am today. Concerns, if I can address them, that we may have with yoga in a gym is there are many ways that we can train to be a yoga teacher. You've heard, if I can't remember what episode it is, guys, like we're on to 57 now. Who knows what episode it was? The episode where Natalie and I are having a conversation about being a trainer and setting up training courses. That's a really good episode to go back to, because the bottom line is the yoga industry, completely unregulated. Okay. Any awarding body, Yoga Alliance Professionals, Yoga Alliance, British Will of Yoga, Independent Yoga Network, anyone else who decides to set themselves up as an awarding body, that's what it is. We are setting ourselves up independently. There is no government-led in the UK, government-led standardization when it comes to the yoga industry, yoga training, and what constitutes a yoga teacher. Now, I know that sometimes that gives us some bit of like unease when we're like, what who is accrediting this yoga teacher training course, and will I be insured to teach? Like, I get asked this question a lot with my 50-hour yin training. Will I be insured to teach? Will I be able to go and teach this course after training? Yes, because the yoga industry is completely unregulated. The insurance provider, these general insurance providers, ones that a lot of my trainees use, Towergate, Wellness, Insure for Sport, they make the assumption that you can prove the evidence certificate that you've done the training, that the training has trained you to go out and teach, and that you're ready to go out and teach, and you're teaching in a safe way. Like, literally, it's that unregulated. I could probably find you examples of people who maybe aren't qualified yoga teachers that are going out and teaching, or teachers that are going out without insurance. Now, I'm not suggesting that any of that should happen, but that is the nature of an unregulated system. I like to think that unregulation is self-regulation, okay? And what we will find is those people, however they have done their training, whether it be 200 hours, 300 hours, 500 hours, whether it's been over 3 years or 3 weeks, that those people that are teaching from a place of experience, of love, experience of the practice, in service for their students, in service of yoga, and wanting to carry on their studies, that they are the yoga teachers that make it long term. Now, if we go back to the topic of the gym and we think about a gym instructor teaching yoga, do we have that in that gym instructor? I'm just going to say maybe yes, maybe no. And if we do have a personal fitness trainer, a gym instructor who's perhaps gone out and done, I'm no expert at all on sort of like the fitness world and the level 1, level 2, but I know you can do add-ons and like do training for yoga, teaching yoga over a weekend. Can that person introduce people to yoga? I'm going to say yeah. In fact, right now, if you followed me, so I'm recording this on Friday, the 14th of July. It's going out this weekend. It's how I roll in the podcast world often. But if you follow me at all on social media this week, or you're on my newsletter, I have shared a lot about a guy called Stephen Braybook, aka the Movement Man, who I met through training through Gary Carter in 2019. Gary Carter is one of the world's leading fascial anatomists. If you're a yoga teacher and you want to know more about anatomy, I would train with nobody else but Gary. And Gary had Stephen on his training course as a co-tutor. So I met Stephen then, and I followed him ever since, and the odd bit of training with him. And unfortunately, Stephen this week lost his battle to pancreatic cancer. He shared his story quite openly on social media as well. He's a dad, he's 49. I'm a mum, I'm 44. And not only is he just an absolute genius in terms of understanding how the body actually works, it was just hard to see. But one of his sayings, I'm getting goosebumps saying this, one of his sayings was movement is movement. That we get too hooked up into. This is yoga, this is dance, this is Pilates, this is how it should be, this is the alignment. And he's like, this is just not how it works in the brain. Like, the potential for movement that we have is infinite. And when I think of movement is movement, I think that absolutely there is totally every possibility that a gym-based instructor can deliver a yoga class within that gym environment, introduce people to the practice of yoga, and some of those people will go on, it will spark an interest and go on and seek out more yoga and more experienced yoga teachers who can take their practice deeper, or not, but they've just benefited from moving their body and having a stretch. And why are we getting so caught up on how many hours this person's done and what lineage are they respecting, and this is downgrading yoga? Like, I'm like, why are we getting caught up in this? Why are we, this is negative energy, this is low vibe energy. As a yoga teacher, we are much better to get caught up in our energies, what we can bring to the world, what we can do through our knowledge, our experience, and our experience of yoga, which of course will supersede someone who perhaps has a more personal fitness gym instructor background, right? Well, yeah, our experience of movement and yoga is going to be different, and we'll be able to guide our students in a different way. But like, are we making an assumption just because this person has done a different type of training to train different modalities that they cannot work with the human body? So I really do think, and I've always felt like this, that yoga has a massive place in gyms, and it's totally okay that maybe the instructor in the gym isn't a dedicated yoga teacher, has done some yoga training. But I also want to just say, like, I have loads of people in my mentorship program that are highly qualified yoga teachers, and they're teaching in a gym environment. So it would also be our assumption that the teacher in the gym isn't a qualified yoga teacher or isn't qualified enough. And who are we to judge anyway, right? Who are we to judge? So I feel yoga has a massive place in gyms, and yoga, practice of yoga being taught by all different movement specialists, because they will come at it at a different angle. And those people where this interest is sparked will follow it further. Plus, if I think of, if I want to really stereotype the type of person that is going to a gym, may they potentially seek out yoga elsewhere? No, and it might be the first time they encounter it. Some stretching is better than no stretching, guys. Yeah. The other thing that we get in a gym model, so I just want to conclude on this before I get onto this. 100% yoga should happen in gyms, and it is so important that it does, because yoga should happen everywhere. There is no hierarchy to this. Yoga should happen in beautiful, bespoke yoga studios. Yoga should happen in schools, prisons, village halls that need sweeping before you get going, church halls that are cold in the winter, and gyms. It just should happen everywhere, because that allows as many people as possible to access yoga. And yoga should be taught by a diverse range of the community and a diverse range of people with different movement specialist modality backgrounds, because as Stephen said, movement is movement, and it's only our belief system that is getting so attached to it being done a certain way. He would say we're imposing our reality on someone else. That is a topic for another day. I'm actually going to link in these show notes, I've put this out on my newsletter this week actually, a podcast, the Embodiment podcast, which is an interview with Stephen Braybook. And actually, if you're like, Amy, I've only got time to listen to one podcast this week, and it's either you or that Stephen's podcast, turn me off now and listen to Stephen. Okay. It will change the way you view the human body. It will change the way you view yourself as a teacher, which might really help, because we put an awful lot of responsibility on ourselves to get things right for our students. And what if we're not teaching our students? What if they are their teachers? We're just guiding them. We're just holding that space and supporting them. Anyway, huge topic for another day. Okay, I'm going to focus on yoga in gyms. Should it, should not happen? Absolutely, 100%. And if you do question whether it should or not, and you're unsure about the qualifications of the yoga teachers, I would just literally forget it and focus on yourself. Maybe go to your local gym yoga and find out if that's true. All right. Now, the other thing we'll get in a gym environment is often they are corporate environments, in terms of they're run by a chain, that it's a large building and they're offering lots of classes. So my gym membership allows me to go to yoga, allows me to go to Pilates, allows me to go to Zumba, allows me to go to HIIT, allows me to go swimming. Okay, one of these things: HIIT, Zumba, step, spinning. I mean, all these things I don't do. But my membership allows me to do it. Okay, and I pay what, £35, £40 a month to do that, and I can go to as many classes as I want. Right. Well, I often, in my role as a mentor, see people trying to replicate that model as an individual teacher, as a sole trader, going out and teaching a couple of classes a week. There's quite a few times that I see people with a monthly class pass and drop in as well, and listen, and they'll say to me, but listen, they can go to this class at the gym whenever they want and drop in and out, and it's super flexible. I need to be super flexible. And I'm like, but you are running 2 classes a week. You are not ensuring consistent income, and you're not ensuring you're covering your costs. You can't take the large gym model and scale it down to you. You are something completely different. And this was the point I made with this teacher I was having the conversation. She said to me, I'm going to remind you, she said to me, like, the problem I've got about setting up my own classes is in my area, everyone seems to do yoga in the gym. I've been covering gym in a yoga. I've been covering gym class yoga. Hang on, I can't say this. I've been going to the gym to cover yoga classes. That's what I'm trying to say. And classes are full, 20, 25 people. And I was speaking to a teacher the other day, and she said she tried to set up independent classes and it didn't work. So there you go. It's just not going to work for me. And I said to her, well, listen, you are making a huge assumption, first of all, that everyone in your area wants to go to a large class in a gym environment with 25 people. Okay. Do you want to go to yoga like that? What happens if you set up a small, intimate, bespoke class in a dedicated nice space? Like she was talking about, there was a lovely room in the library, or perhaps we go and rent a space within a yoga studio if that exists in her area, and you are marketing that. You are also marketing the fact that you are this experienced yoga teacher, 300 hours foundation, specialist in pre and postnatal. When I book on my classes with you, I am buying into this reassurance that I am going to a class with an experienced yoga teacher. Because if I go back to my point about some of the beliefs we may hold about yoga in a gym, does that stop us from going? Do we think, oh, you know what, I'm not sure I'm going to go to that yoga class because I'm not sure if it's a qualified yoga teacher, right? Guys, like, I'm just you, right? But whereas I see an experienced teacher offering private classes in a really nice venue, I'm like, I'm in. So it's all about understanding your audience. You are not trying to compete against the gym chains. If you're not a big studio chain yourself, if you are going out as a sole trader individually, then you are not competing against the big gym chains. And stop modeling yourself on them, and stop making assumptions that because they're busy, their classes are full, and they're cheap, there's flexible payment options, that no one is going to pay more to do yoga with you. That is just not true. There are a group of people out there who don't want to do yoga in the gym. They want to come and do yoga with you. You've just got to make sure that you're calling them out. You've just got to make sure that you are not saying, oh, gym yoga is rubbish, it's smelly. You have to do yoga after the smelly, sweaty hip people have done it, and it will smell a bit. Have you ever been there? But you're advertising your beautiful bespoke space. You're advertising the fact that you're experienced, qualified yoga teacher. And then particularly if we're thinking like pre and postnatal yoga or more therapeutic yoga, I mean, their needs aren't necessarily always met in a general gym yoga class as well. So my dears, you are all needed. And then I want to finish today with does this lead you to consider whether if I'm teaching yoga in a gym, then that means I'm not a very good yoga teacher? Okay. Good thing that comes up. Like, I find in my mentorship program, if someone is regularly teaching in a gym, it's like, oh, wow, I know it's not the right place to teach. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute there. Who said? Because what going out and teaching in a gym gives you is consistent, guaranteed income that most gyms pay their teachers. From my experience of my mentorship program, so I'm not saying this is industry standard research here, but my experience is most gyms are paying their instructors somewhere between 25 and 40 pounds, right? 40 pounds, 25 to 40 pounds an hour. Going rate in a gym seems to be around 30 pounds. So the challenge is, like, in terms of hourly rate and your planning and everything that goes into it, it's not a great hourly rate, and it's capped. Like, Doesn't matter whether, and you often find that teachers are, I had a conversation with a lady in my mentorship program who's teaching in a gym, and this was exactly it. She was like, the maximum class number was 20. They've just upped it to 28. How do you feel about that? And I said, well, how do you feel about it? You know, are you happy to teach 28 people? And are they paying you anymore? And like, the bottom line is there was no any additional offer of pay, that they were just upping it to 28 people in the room. And again, their argument was they were covering their overhead. They need to have more people in the class. They couldn't afford to pay her anymore. And at that point, she literally had a choice to say, okay, I'm happy. I'm going to, consider that there might be 28 people in here, and consider what I do and do not teach, and accept the hourly rate. And I'm not saying that's good, and I'm not saying that's bad. I just be neutral to all of this stuff. But for this teacher in my mentorship program, the gym had given her, she qualified, she went straight into teaching in the gym. She's teaching, I think, 4 or 5 classes in the gym, although she had now started to cut that down, set up her own classes. But the gym gave her guaranteed immediate income and a space to go and cut her craft. So, I know that then takes you back to, well, hang on a minute, Amy, then when I'm thinking about going to a gym yoga class and I'm an experienced yoga teacher, am I going to be taught by someone who's newly qualified? Maybe, maybe not. I can give you examples of really experienced teachers that are teaching in gyms for these very reasons, that they can just go in, teach, go home, guarantee pay, that they literally don't want the hassle of setting up by themselves, having a website, having a booking system, growing and nurturing an audience, newsletter, all of this stuff that comes with when we set ourselves up on our own. And the gym for many teachers just offers a way of sharing your passion, sharing yoga without having to do any of that admin businessy stuff. Okay. And I can think of people who just are happy to say that. From my experience, most teachers who go into the gym environment either then feel ready at some point to branch out and start their own thing, and they do a mixture of the both, and that gym income gives them that nice consistent income to go out and like grow and expand the other stuff. And then, or they go like, hang on a minute, I could get paid a lot more if I was doing this by myself, and they use that drive to go off and set up their own classes. But none of it is better over the other. What it is what is going to work for you right now. And this lady, if you're interested in the conclusion that we came to in terms of what she was going to do and set up her own classes, I was like, look, it could be right now that staying with the gym, going back to gym and seeing whether they'd be interested in setting pre and postnatal classes up. It's going to be super easy for you. You've got a 3-year-old, you've got another job 3.5 days a week. You're telling me right now you moved house, that it just doesn't feel like right now you've got the capacity to build that audience, and market, talk to people about your classes and invite them in, whereas the gym's going to do all of that heavy lifting for you. You've just got to show up and teach. Why don't you go and do that? Because that's going to get you teaching, it's going to get you earning money, right? It's going to get you the opportunity to cut your craft as well. And in amongst all of this, pre and postnatal women get an access to do yoga with you. And then you may feel confident to go out and do your own classes. I said, but your other option is you go out, you find that space, you book it, and you start your classes, and you do whatever energetically you've got available to you in terms of marketing, inviting people to these classes, and you see how it goes. And what's the worst that's going to happen? We get to December, these classes are going to start in the autumn. We get to like Christmas time, you're like, oh, this just, I'm struggling to bring people in. I'm struggling to advertise my classes to get people to know about this. It's more that I just haven't got the time and the energy to do this right now. I'm just going to go back into that gym and cut my craft this way and wait until there's more availability in terms of my time and my energy. Or you're like, I'm so glad I went off my own volition, because look, these classes are not only breaking even, but they're turning a profit. And I've created a community of bumps, mums and little ones in a lovely space that they enjoy coming to. The thing is, both options are totally viable. If we go back to her original belief that people only do yoga in the gyms, that there's no point setting off any classes. If she'd stayed in that belief, she wouldn't have taken any action. And this podcast, I want to call it clickbait. I put the clickbait out there as gym yoga. Should yoga be taught in gyms, right? And this podcast is actually all about how our belief systems leads us to action and inaction in our business, but also how our belief systems lead us to make judgments that may not be true. Okay. So maybe this weekend we'll all go to yoga in our local gym, or maybe next time on a Facebook group where people are talking about the fact that yoga shouldn't be taught in gyms, that this is, diluting the subject of yoga, that we just don't comment, knowing that movement is movement. And however the path, however the routing is for people to move their bodies more and discover yoga and whatever that might mean for them individually, then that is better than them not doing yoga at all. And that is better than them not moving their bodies at all. All right, my darlings, thank you so much for listening to episode 57. I will see you all next week. I will put the link in the show notes to the Embodiment podcast. Quite an old one now, back from 2018, but it is a great one to listen to. Listen to Stephen Brayburke's words of wisdom. I feel like I just was like, for me this week, listen to my podcast and then listen to this one, because when a great light, I've got really bad goosebumps saying this, my higher self is, when, a great brain, a great light, someone who was really making significant change for the good in the movement world, when that light is taken out, you kind of have this feeling of like, how can I keep this light going? So for me this week, if you could set aside, an hour with your earbuds or your headphones, listen to Stephen's words and take them in, I would be immensely grateful. And then on that note, I will see you all next week for episode 58.